Hey, what's happening out there? Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from not so sunny South Central Texas, capital of the new free world, Austin. Here we go. First of all, I want to thank all 160 people that listened to the show yesterday on YouTube. Thank you so very, very much. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to be received by 160 amazing, fantastic, brilliant, switched on people. So what's going on out there? Here we are now about 3 days after the eclipse. Let's see, we got, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Unless the New World Order and the Grand Luciferic State has changed the mathematical system as well, it adds up to 3. I remember seeing a Will Smith interview from many years back. And it was an interesting interview. He was young. He was this young rapper. Nobody really knew who Will Smith was. He was hanging out with these I'd call them second generation, second wave hip hop guys. And he was like on the bus or backstage or something. And he was talking about the mind and creativity and imagination. And he said, why is 1 + 1 2? Why can't 1 + 1 be 3? And he went on to have this kind of elaborate dissertation about belief and subjectivity and rules and agreement and all that stuff, right? Which was, at that time, you think about it and go, oh, wow, this is really brilliant. Look at this guy. These guys are thinking in the box, and Will Smith is, thinking from the top of Saturn's cube on Saturn. And then you look at that statement in retrospect. You can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. And all of a sudden, it all kind of makes sense. Because then Will Smith becomes this perfect vehicle in some ways to be that guy, to be a guy who could become a symbol and a spokesperson for whatever they need him to be. And certainly he has he's not been as radical as some. He's a Virgo, by the way. Will Smith is. He hasn't been as radical as some people, like Jamie Foxx. When Jamie Foxx talked about how cool it was in Django to kill white people, Django Unchained to kill white people. He got away with it because it was Saturday Night Live and it's comedy and everything. But let's flip that script. Let's say it was Dennis O'Leary and he was in a film where he tracked down runaway slaves. And he said, it was just a movie, but I got to tell you, man, it was, killing those black people in that movie, nothing better than that, right? I mean, flip that script and see what we got going on there. That's not a good career move on the part of Dennis Leary, right? So, but Will Smith plays this role, and he's kind of played this more interesting sort of Luciferic role. And clearly the raising of his kids has been kind of a key part in that. You know, sometimes these celebrities don't have to make actual physical sacrifices in order to fulfill their contract. They can make sacrifices in other ways. For instance, let's just say, and I don't have any hard or solid proof to back this up. This is speculation, but it's sort of informed speculation. Let's look at Brad and Angela, or Angelina, Brangelina, and Shiloh. Shiloh is now transitioning from a girl to a boy. And she's going to look just like Brad Pitt when she's a boy. It's going to be weird, okay? Prepare yourself for that. But isn't that some form of a sacrifice? Isn't that some form of a sacrifice? Like getting in and steering and piloting and navigating your child's craft to the point where they're willing to forego their biological identity. To me, that's a form of sacrifice. Will Smith has kind of done it with Jaden Smith, and of course, Jaden has his ability to have his own life and his own mind and his own thoughts, theoretically, right? But Jaden Smith has been, kind of at the forefront of this kind of girly boy thing, where I forget the name of the movement, the the pretty boys or the soft boys or the femi boys, or I don't know what it is. You can look it up. They run around wearing dresses and stuff. Now, one may think, hey, that's Jaden Smith, who's an interesting kid in a lot of ways. He's very, very bright. He's very bright. He's super philosophical. And, is that a form of sacrifice to some degree? So, anyway, I can see why Will Smith has become so successful. He's actually a really good actor. He's very, very talented. I'm not going to take anything away from his considerable chops. But I can see why he was brought into the game, just based on that one little snippet. Because everything becomes utterly subjective, and then we lose all of our cultural, philosophical, emotional, psychological, biological moorings. And so we are cast off into space, which is kind of where we are now. We are cast off into the void. And the void is a really apt description for this post-eclipse time. Now, we do have this significant event coming up on the 23rd of September, and all the biblical allusions that are connected to it, and all of the planets that are going to be in Virgo at a particular angle. So there's the trumpet of Revelation sounding in the distance. Now, there are a number of people out there who believe that September 23rd heralds the arrival of Nibiru. That's what they're saying. That Nemesis. I can do Sean Connery. Let me see if I can do Sean Connery talking about Nibiru. I'm not sure where I take. I'm not sure where I take this money penny. Anyway, I'd have to work on my Connery a little bit, but that's another kind of thing we got flying out there on the event horizon. 23rd of September. We'll talk more about it. I might even devote tomorrow's show to that. Why don't let's make a date tomorrow. Let me just write this down. Tap, 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 tap. If I hit my keyboard, I'll fucking tap, 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 tap. Tomorrow, Robert talks about September 23rd, astrological ramification, Nibiru. Okay, done. So that's happening tomorrow. And that's out there, hanging out there. So we got strange weather coming too, which is really interesting. We've got a big storm coming up from the Gulf. It's just kind of hanging. It's kind of hanging out there. It's Hurricane Harvey. And we're going to have a lot of rain apparently this weekend, and maybe a bit more than that down in the Gulf area. All my friends down in Houston, Galveston, South Padre Island, Harlingen, batten down the hatches and make sure you're safe down there. I'm sure it won't be as big as they have kind of hinted at. But you never know with these people. If they switch that weather machine on, they can do all kinds of crazy things, can't they? Like they did with Katrina. Remember back in the day with Katrina? Man, they just stalled that thing right over New Orleans. It's like, let's build it up, steer it, and stall it. Bang. And it did all of its damage and then dissipation. They're waging a weather war right now in North Korea. I don't know if you've been following that. I put it up on Facebook yesterday. But North Korea has been in a serious drought. Serious drought. And they've got sanctions. They've got people that are starving. And they're hungry. They're probably out in the wilderness out there in North Korea digging up roots and who knows what. And North Korea's nutrition status has been sketchy for years already. If you're living in Pyongyang, you're probably eating much better than if you're living, in one of the much smaller provinces outside of Pyongyang. Let's put it that way. And because clearly they've got like different images of people from two separate areas. And the Pyongyang people tend to be healthier, bigger. They get more proteins than the people that are not in the city, who tend to be smaller and scrawnier because they just don't have the same diet. So right now, it's the tried and true tactic of starving out the North Korean people. And they were able to do this before. I mean, this is a tactic that they use all the time. It was the thing that led to the revolt in Egypt, which was a very interesting kind of phenomenon. This was back in 2000, I think it was 2010 or 2011, when Mubarak basically got kicked out of Egypt. A longtime ally of the U.S. apparently was not an ally enough with Barack Obama in place. They wanted the Muslim Brotherhood to run Egypt. And in fact, what happened is that the army came in and basically took over once Mubarak was ousted. And the reason why Mubarak was ousted is because they had one of their color revolutions. And the color revolution was staged to coincide with the rise of the price of wheat in Egypt. And wheat is one of the main staples in the Egyptian diet. And so what was happening is that it was getting more expensive for the restaurants and the bakeries to carry the levant, right? What the bread and whatever it is that they would use to have a lot of their filler in their diet. So when people are hungry, they get pissed off. It's like, man, we want to eat. If you want to get the American people's attention, you take away fast food for about 3 weeks. You take away fast food for 3 weeks, and you'll have a frickin' revolt on your hands. You want the next American Revolution, shut down all the fast food restaurants. Because the first thing that people will go through is withdrawal. All those chemicals that they've been consuming that are basically this reinvestment in consumption. Like, I need to get some more of that. That was so good. I'll go back a few days later. You never really think that, but that's what's happening. Because once you get that hit, once you get that fix, you're good for about 2 or 3 days. And all of a sudden the brain says, I just saw there's a Carl's Jr.'s up ahead here on the road, about 1.5 miles. Oh, look at that. It's an on and off. I just get in there and get my stuff and get back on the freeway, and bang, you get your fix again. So if fast food was shut down for 3 weeks, at about day 10, people would be losing their shit. They'd be losing their minds. They'd be going down to the fast food restaurants, pounding on the doors, trying to get in, raid the kitchen, whatever. They'd be on eBay looking for people who've like pilfered quarter pounders with cheese for these experiments to see how long they'll last, because we know that a McDonald's hamburger doesn't decompose. Somebody would go in there, hey, anybody doing an experiment with the McDonald's burgers? I got $20. I got $20 for that 3-month-old quarter pounder. That's how desperate it would get. And then once they figured out that they weren't going to get their fast food, then they get really pissed. They'd start marching on Washington. And they would demand to get their fast food back. Demand it. And I'll tell you, that would be something that would unite everybody. Yeah. It wouldn't be racism. It wouldn't be the economy. It wouldn't be the Federal Reserve. It wouldn't be the endless wars in Afghanistan or Yemen or Iraq or Syria. No. It would be fast food. Just think about that. Think about all the pissed off people from all the various cultures, subcultures, races, groups, tribes, all coming together for the liberation of fast food. We want it, and we want it now. We want it our way. Marching on Washington, loaded with guns, loaded with ammo, drooling, slobbering, heads pounding because they haven't had their chemical fix that they so readily received on a daily basis. And that would include things like donuts. Like Dunkin', shut Dunkin' down. Shut Dunkin' down. Yep. While we're at it, let's throw Starbucks in there too. Because there's that outer rim of people that don't eat fast food. No, I don't eat fast food. I haven't gone to a fast food restaurant in years. I stay away from that. It's terrible. But they'll go to a Starbucks. I guarantee you that. They'll get their Starbucks. You shut them down too. Because now you can get them involved. Now they're like marching on Washington for their double mocha latte light with soy. And man, they'll take no freaking prisoners. That's it. That's it. I have found the magic key to bringing this all together. Shut them all down. Shut all the fast food restaurants down. Shut the donuts down. Shut Starbucks down. Now, see, if we do it voluntarily, it doesn't have the same kind of impact, right? It'd be nice. Let's say people just say, "Man, I'm not doing it anymore. It's not good for me. It's not healthy. I'm supporting a whole culture here that is really not good for kind of a long-term, sustainable view of the planet. My body's being sustained better by not going there, and there's a lot of other good that comes out of this." But what happens out of that is that there's not enough vitriol, right? You just go about, you do your business, and you take care of yourself, and because that's really how it's supposed to work. Like, nobody's supposed to make decisions for you. Like when in New York, when they say, what's his name, Bloomberg outlawed the 72-ounce soda. Well, geez, that's great. He's outlawed the 72-ounce soda. So people could just buy, two 34-ounce sodas or two 32-ounce sodas, right? And by the way, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when I was a kid, they had the soda machines in the restaurant. You got one crack at the soda machine when I was a kid. You went up, you got your soda. It was kind of an honor system. You know what I'm saying? And you sit down, and then you're done. And if you went up and you got that second soda, it was kind of like borderline stealing. Now, forget it. You see people going up to the soda machines 2-3 times. So who cares if Michael Bloomberg outlaws the 72-ounce soda? You still got the soda machine. The dealer is right there, right? He just made the syringe a little smaller. That's all he did. But you can keep going back to the dealer. So it's ridiculous. But we don't need people to tell us what to do. And we just do it ourselves. However, if something is taken away from us, And this gets back into our child mentality. Mommy, daddy's going to take something away. And it gets taken away, and all of a sudden we get all up in arms. Oh, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. So if they took the fast food restaurants away, it has a much bigger effect. People would be so pissed. So pissed. That's the start of the next American Revolution. But hopefully we would be around in order to do that. Has anybody seen this thing with NASA and the balloons that they sent up with this bacteria? It is so creepy. I mean, what the fuck are these people up? Sorry, I'm sorry. I hit moments of exasperation sometimes. Here we have NASA, which is completely irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. They're being outstripped and outpaced by people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson with all their little SpaceX and their rocket projects. NASA's irrelevant. It's been irrelevant for years. The space station is a joke. It's likely a complete fake and fraud. If you get into some of the videos that are out there on the space station, you'll see that it's a complete fabrication, total fabrication, that there really isn't any space station. So NASA's irrelevant. And what do? Well, now their relevance comes down to launching giant balloons with this mysterious bacteria in the balloons. And they launch them all along the path of the eclipse. So they had high school students and college students. Here you go, high school, college students. Why don't you handle this unusual bacteria that the guy who invented the bacteria is actually dead now. And it's a bacteria that has no other relationship to any other bacteria. Here, why don't you handle it? Why don't you send up those balloons? Ooh, isn't it cool to work with NASA? Isn't it fun? What the hell is that about? They're sending up all these balloons that have this strange bacteria. And the guy that invented the bacteria is dead. Mysteriously, of course. The one guy who understood the damn thing, he's dead. Remember all those virologists and scientists and doctors? And I'm not talking about the holistic doctors, although they could be linked. Remember all those guys that mysteriously died? And all the holistic doctors, they had their casualty list. So now we've got this unusual bacteria now floating around the sky, and people in the know, people that know about it, they're going, what the hell is this all about? And what kind of impact does the silhouetted sun have upon this unusual bacteria? Who the hell knows? We're in uncharted territory now. Are they unleashing the new plague? Is that what's happening? Man, what a weird world we live in. But it's fun though too in a lot of ways, right? Because we have all this strange phenomena. It's like, we're surfing through this really unusual time. And to use another surfing metaphor, boy, these are big waves. We're out of Mavericks right now, and we probably haven't seen anything yet. Get ready, because the next sets are coming, and they're going to be huge. So you're going to have to surf through this stuff. Combination of faith, health, moxie. It's all going to be part of the package. And if you are not prepared, you get hit by that wave and you get taken under. And even if you're a really good surfer, sometimes you get hit by that wave and taken under. You just hope you don't Mark Fu it. Anybody know who Mark Fu is out there? Mark Fu was a big wave rider who lost his life at Mavericks. It was kind of a big deal at that time. Mavericks, by the way, in California, just outside of Half Moon Bay. One of the great kind of stories of our time. There was a guy who was going to Half Moon Bay High School, and he was watching this one point out past Half Moon Bay near Miramar, and he saw these like massive waves. He couldn't believe the waves he was seeing in this one area. It has to do with like this trench that is just off the coast. So it creates this big kind of massive, like, rising trough. Anyway, and it happens every I think late fall or early winter. So he was going out there and he was surfing. This guy was surfing Mavericks before anybody else did, and then it became an event. And now it's known as, if you want to really test your skills and see what you're made of, you go out and you surf Mavericks. So it's an interesting story, just from a phenomenal, it's like nobody had seen this before. This young guy hanging out in Half Moon Bay High on the hill in Half Moon Bay spotted it, and for months he just surfed it by himself. That's kind of ballsy too, to be out in this kind of massive, waves getting 20 feet high out of Mavericks. I digress slightly, but that's kind of where we are. We're all surfing Mavericks together, and if we can flip fear to, because we're in this kind of fight or flight thing, right? You either fight and you get out there and you have a blog or a radio show, or you do whatever you do, right? You say, this is it, man. We're here in this time, and I'm going to fight. And on the other side, I'm sure on the other side, because I think there is another side. I can see the other side. They're feeling the same thing. Like, you ask somebody who is really, and I know a lot of you have friends, neighbors, relatives who are really dyed-in-the-wool progressive, liberal, Democrats, whatever label they're comfortable with. They're in a fight. They're in a fight too. They're in a fight for America. They think America is going to hell in a handbasket. They think America is all going to be Hitler Youth. They think that there are ovens, like the fast food network is really just an excuse to ultimately walk people into those fast food restaurants and incinerate them, right? They think that all the different people from various races and cultures, they're all going to wind up in camps, and we're all going to walk around in brown shirts, and Mein Kampf will be required reading for our kids, right? Adolf will make a comeback as a very popular baby name, along with other names like Herman and Alger and a lot of the other names associated with the Third Reich. That's what they think. That is exactly what they think. And that the softness, the compassion, the heart, the love, all these things that this version of the White House. By the way, how long is the White House going to remain the White House? How long? Yeah, good luck on that one. I put this up on Facebook yesterday. There was a guy. You can't make this shit up. So the first football game of the year that ESPN is going to broadcast is going to be in Charlottesville, Virginia, for the University of Virginia. And what's the University of Virginia? Are they the Hokies, or is that Virginia Tech? I always get the two of them mixed up. Anyway, so they're gonna be broadcasting this game from Charlottesville, University of Virginia, and one of the guys on the broadcast team is named Robert Lee. Robert Lee. And guess what ESPN did? ESPN took him off the broadcast. Can you believe that? They took him off the broadcast because his name is Robert Lee. Robert Lee's Asian. He's Asian. He's Asian, people. He has nothing to do with Robert E. Lee, and he's not even Caucasian. He's Caucasian without the cock. No, that's a bad joke. He's just Asian, okay? He's just Asian. It's like, come on. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This is the world we're living in. So how long is the White House going to be the White House? What's the over-under on that? What is the over... And when are they going to paint it? When are they going to paint it? In what color will they paint the White House? Beige? Pink? How about purple? How about purple? Purple, we're in the purple revolution. I'm sure there's a petition somewhere in there, petition.org, to repaint the White House purple. I'm just speculating. The over-under on that White House name, probably about 2 months. 2 months. This is where we are. But you got to have fun with it, right? I mean, you have to have fun with it. You know, those people on that side of the equations I was talking about, they feel like they're in a fight too. They really do. They have very strong feelings. I'm not sure if they're patriotic feelings, but, you know, if they're really believing in that it has to do with the country, and this country is based upon certain principles and foundations, and, for whatever reason, they're, trying to adhere to that in their own way. And I get that. I totally get that. Nobody wants to see this country become a kind of lopsided oligarchy where certain groups are favored over other groups. Certain rights are dispensed for one group versus another group. Nobody wants to see that, because that'd be just like the Obama administration. No, we don't want that. I think in our heart of hearts, we are, generally speaking, very fair people. We're fair people. I don't believe racism is that big of a deal. People do have forms of prejudice. We all have them. And that's just the way it is. And then we learn and go through life and we dismantle our prejudice. And some people, it's greater than others. I don't think anybody... Nat Hentoff, who is a great, great liberal writer and a great liberal critic, and he was fantastic. He used to write for the Village Voice and a bunch of other newspapers and magazines. He had an amazing piece about how he did not trust liberals, that he actually trusted, dyed-in-the-wool conservatives, or he actually trusted, quote-unquote, rednecks more than he trusted liberals. And Malcolm X felt the exact same way, because at least you knew what you got with somebody who was, not playing nice, or not playing by the rules, not being politically correct. You knew where you stood with them. Both Nat Hentoff and Malcolm X understood this, whereas the kind of the liberal mindset was always, on the moral slide rule. It was always kind of moving up and down. It was, it's subjective reality and secular humanism and reframe. But they still believe that that they are involved in the good fight. But they've got it wrong. They have it wrong, and they have it wrong because they've been programmed. Now, if you're not in that camp, you've got to watch out for another version of programming. And the other version of programming, I'm going to be really clear about this, is, we're going to be like, completely contrary to that. We're going to dig in our heels, and we're going to unsheath our bayonets, and we'll participate in this duopoly. That is a really risky proposition. Now, at some point, and I hate to say this, if there is a civil war, people are going to have to pick a side. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's how it goes down in civil wars, unless, of course, you're one of the there were these people that came to Texas from Germany. They were very interesting people. They were quite enlightened. They were from Bavaria. And they didn't want to participate in the Civil War. So a lot of their people, young men, went to Mexico. Some of them got killed along the way for desertion. Some of them got conscripted into the Confederate Army. But I hate to say it, if a Civil War comes down, you're probably going to have to pick a side. And that's just the way it is. Unless, of course, you're willing to Get in the middle, be shot, and become a martyr. That's quite possible. Martyrdom sells these days. There's a lot of power in martyrdom. Huge amounts of power in martyrdom. The left is built on martyrdom. They love martyrs on the left. Oh boy, really advances the cause. Totally advances the cause. The right, not so much. You know, Steve Scalise. The problem with Steve Scalise is that he didn't die. Although we haven't seen him now, have we? We have not seen Steve Scalise for a very long time. And I'm being slightly ironic in the fact that he didn't die. Because it's great that he didn't die, if he truly didn't die. Because, you know, we really don't want to see people die. But had he died, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Now you get yourself a real martyr. Real martyr. But the right doesn't play in the martyr game. The left loves the martyr game. They're into it, man. Give them their martyrs. Sanctification. But we have to resist this kind of programming where we unsheath our bayonets and basically say, you know, this is it. You know, we're coming after you too. We have to watch out for that. That's the other side of the programming. You know, we have to be fluid enough to know what the game is, to understand the game, and not get caught up in the cliches around the game. It's a very hard thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do. And yet it is the razor's edge that we must tread in order to get through this time. Very difficult. It's one of the hardest things to do. It's kind of like what Sananda says, where, you know, you got to be in this world but not of it. It's the way it is. And you can look around and say, yeah, there's some heavy stuff going on. I mean, objectively. And I'll play the game here for a second, because I can do this, right? Objectively, I look around, I see what's happening in Europe. They're flooding Europe with the quote-unquote refugees of the war in Syria and Iraq. And then once they ran out of those folks, they started to bring in the sub-Saharan folks from Africa. And now they are the next wave, and have been the next wave for probably about a year now anyway. So there's a concerted effort here to dismantle Western Europe and the Northern European identity. And that's clear. Barbara Lerner Spector told us this was coming. She told us back in, what was that, 2009, 2010? I think it was around 2010. No, it wasn't that far back. 2013, I believe. So 4 years ago, she told us it was coming. It was coming. It was on its way. And then you have all the kind of cultural Marxism that existed and has existed in Europe, excuse me, for, oh boy, since World War II. Because even though the wall stopped in Berlin and West and East Germany, socialism became very pervasive throughout all of Europe and became mostly the operating principle in every major country in Europe post-World War II. They didn't need a wall, but governments became socialist. France, Italy, England became socialist. I mean, all you have to do is look at the amount of taxes and the amount of government programs and the incentives to sort of live on the dole and all that good stuff without being highly, highly productive and all those good core values that we cherish here in America, of course. So that's been going on for a while. So you have the cultural Marxist tide, and you have the falling off of the birth rate population in Northern Europe, and then you have the invasion coming in from basically the Middle East and Africa. It's all planned. Okay, so I'm seeing this objectively. And then, of course, you know, we have what's happening in South Africa, which is essentially kind of a new level of genocide taking place. Again, I'm seeing it objectively. And then, of course, now we have this new wave in the United States where everything that is connected to the Civil War is bad. And there's the eradication of history. And if you're now a white male, you're the most evil, vile, fucking scum on the planet. Now I'm seeing this all objectively, okay? I mean, I'm just taking notes here, and I happen to be one of those guys. So what do? You know, do I go down to the gun shop and load up on, you know, rifles and pistols and ammo, and do I Travis Bickle it here? Right? Is that what we're supposed to do now? Now, there's a Sufi maxim that says, you know, tether your camel first and then trust in God, which I think is a pretty good maxim. But you don't have to tether 10 camels first, if you know what I'm saying. So here we are, right? We're in this time, and I'm a witness to it. You're a witness to it. And I'm also here to you know, be a witness to, if any group is eradicated, then we all suffer. We all suffer. Yes, that's right. Any group, we all suffer. Because no matter what group I'm talking about, they're here for a particular reason. We're here for a particular reason. And, you know, theoretically, we are stronger together than we are apart. And I still firmly believe that. I firmly believe it. But at the same time, we also have to be diffusive in a lot of ways, right? We have to be discerning, because we also cannot be steamrolled. It's a very interesting kind of dynamic and time that we're in. And it takes a great amount of restraint, control, understanding, truth, realism, compassion, empathy, and a new level of awareness to get through this piece. Because you just can't go along with the tide. Right? If you are going along with the tide and your tide is consumed by white guilt and white privilege and, you know, all these other memes, you're going to drown. You will be one of those guys in Mavericks that never comes up. Trust me. And if you're on the other side of that and you're frothing at the mouth and you want to just completely eradicate anybody else that has nothing to do with your identity and nothing to do with your race and nothing to do with your culture, you're in real trouble. Because guess what? Guess what you'll attract? You'll attract the exact same thing that you are advertising, marching for, stomping for, marketing. So we've got to be really, really, you know, aware. And, you know, there are more people than not that understand that we're in it together, right? I mean, if you really break it down, like I'm gonna give a shout out to this guy. He's one of my favorite Facebook people. His name is Sanu Akkad, and he is this dude. He is totally, first of all, he's African American, right? He's a Black American, and he owns that. Like, that's where he comes from. You know, that's his base of operation. He doesn't turn his back on that. But he's also really open, and he's really into the truth, right? He's into the truth, and that is the biggest thing that we can ask of ourselves and ask of other people. Like, it's okay to be like cool and solid and sound with your base of operation, but you got to be into the truth. You have to let it in. Because when you do, it's liberating and it joins you with other people if you can completely burn down your predispositions. And sometimes it's a really challenging thing for us to do. But it's important. I feel like I'm on a soapbox today. Maybe I should climb down. Confessions, rantings, and ravings of a middle-aged white male. All right, let's get out of here. I've said enough. But it doesn't really matter, does it? I've only got 160 people listening to me anyway. I feel like Mel Gibson in Conspiracy Theory, to be honest with you. Right? Remember that? He had about 45 people that subscribed to his like newsletter, but they were all really fucking important people. You know, I mean, there's this great line. One of my favorite movies is 24 Hour Party People. And it's about the story of Factory Records. And Tony Wilson is the guy who started Factory Records. And Steve Cooney plays him. And he's a very fine actor, very funny guy. And he brought he went to go see the Sex Pistols for the first time in Manchester. And he comes back to the BBC. He has a TV show on the BBC. He's a reporter on the BBC, has his own music show. And he's talking to one of the producers at the BBC. And he's talking about how important this event was when he went to see the Sex Pistols. And he was right. He was absolutely right. It's one of the most important kind of nights in musical history. And the producer of the BBC asks him, well, how many people were there? And he said, probably about 45. He goes, well, 45, that's not many people. And then he comes back with how many people were at the Last Supper? 12. How many people killed Julius Caesar? 5. So there you go. Let's put the numbers in perspective. And with that, I will end today's show. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Tomorrow, Friday Farcast. We're going to get into September 23rd. Hang on to your hats. We're going in.